Well, that was quite different. For the first time ever, we get to experience the boys like never before as we get both a supernatural reunion and a superbad reunion all in one episode. Welcome back, everybody. We are here talking about the fifth and final season of The Boys, and today we are breaking down episode 5. We'll be discussing all the details from the very different and distinct point of views from Firecracker, Black Noir 2, Terror, Sage, and Soldier Boy. But before we begin, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for all things The Boys as we continue our weekly coverage of each new episode all season long. I have a lot of thoughts about this episode, so get your Bibles, get your steaks, get your favorite toy, and your baby oil, and let's break it all down. Full spoilers ahead. We open this episode with a power struggle being seen between the two wannabe disciples who's trying to get the attention of Homelander. Firecracker presents the Homelander Democratic Church of America ad blitz. Meanwhile, Old Father is tracking the skyrocketing attendance of their new congregations. Homelander isn't impressed by the idea of easing in Americans into his campaign to becoming God, and he doesn't like the fact that Firecracker called him a prophet because they're servants and he wants America to be prepared for his ascension. It's important to pay attention to Firecracker's wording in this episode, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, Homelander tells her that he wants to be very direct and wants no confusion about his title. Either you can call him Lord or Savior, but he doesn't want any confusion about God and Jesus. He just wants to be the one. As Firecracker and Old Father try to one-up each other in front of Homelander, but Firecracker wins when she shows Homelander his very own Bible filled with the classics of the Old and New Testament, but now it includes the New American Testament written by AI. Now, Homelander agrees to taking Firecracker's lead on this as she gets an unknown call and seems to be concerned, as this leads to the very first time ever where we see someone else's name appear as a title card other than the boys, and it's Firecracker's name as we flash back to what led to this call that she's receiving. We flash back to a diner where we meet the person who called Firecracker, and it's her old pastor by the name of Greg. He's someone that's meant a lot to her and was the person who baptized her when she was a kid and basically raised her, but they had a falling out at some point. He set up this meeting with Firecracker because the new Homelander church has taken his regulars and he's losing money at the same time. Now, not only that, but it's not like his congregation was leaving willingly, but instead a suit by the name of Praying Mantis is basically forcing them to join by scaring them and destroying the pastor's church as a warning for them to show their loyalty to Homelander. The pastor isn't keen on joining Homelander's church, and even if he was, he can't afford the franchise fee. Now, he can see that Firecracker isn't herself now serving under Homelander, and he won't be calling or considering Homelander his god. This is just another example of Firecracker having a difficult time with fully being on board with supporting Homelander calling himself God. Now, back at Vought, after sleeping with Soldier Boy, Firecracker seeks some kind of comfort with him. But if she was looking for a shoulder to cry on, she picked the wrong guy. She tries to open up about her doubts about replacing God with Homelander, but Soldier Boy has zero interest in this pillow talk as he heads off to LA, which we'll be discussing a little bit later. Meanwhile, as she's dealing with her existential crisis, she finds Old Father hand-delivering donated follower milk to Homelander's suite as he's currently in LA with Soldier Boy. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there's obviously tension between Firecracker and Old Father as they're both fighting for Homelander's attention to being his right-hand man in his quest to being a god. Now, clearly Old Father can sense her doubts in Homelander, but they play nice for now. As Firecracker prepares for her live broadcast, she learns that Praying Mantis has raided multiple churches at this point, including her own, as she learns that she will have to be covering this for her show. The teleprompter reads for her to say that her home church has been infested by Starlighters. It goes on to also say some more damning things as we can see that Firecracker hesitates, but she ultimately sticks with the script given to her, and she says that her pastor has also been infested and goes into a story about him being a child groomer. As she looks into the camera and lies, we can see her soul leave her body as a tear comes from her eyes because she knows that she not only ended her pastor's career, but she also ended his life outside of the church within his own community by saying what she just said. Wow, man. Like, talk about being a traitor to someone that loved you, took care of you. I mean, she's basically Judas. This leads us back into when her pastor called her at the meeting at the start of this episode. Now, this whole segment to me, a firecracker, was very telling. This goes to show that she was willing to sacrifice her relationship with someone who actually cared for her in order to appease Homelander, who couldn't care less about her. Firecracker misplaced her hope and belief in Homelander, and later it will catch up to her at the end of this episode, this being an example of false hope in a false god. Now from here we get a Black Noir title card and get a flashback to what happened before he came to the meeting and why he was clenching his fists when the name of the Deep was mentioned. Now, a few episodes back, the Deep was whining about Black Noir randomly disappearing every afternoon. Well, as it turns out, the silent killer isn't taking long bathroom breaks or taking naps. Instead, this leads us into finding out what he's actually doing. Cut to Black Noir 2 without his mask, and we get to experience the man behind the mask and get to spend some time with the actor as he goes into a theater rehearsal for a BG's directed by Adam. Now, Black Noir 2's real name is Justin, and Justin impresses Adam with a great note for his character that he's playing in this play. Now, Adam, of course, has no idea that his leading man is Black Noir 2 of the 7. Now, we watch as Justin confides in Adam, sharing that he's having a tough time getting into character because he's distracted by his day job, and that obviously being his beef with the Deep. Now, funny enough, Adam shares his own unpleasant experiences with working with the Deep on the billion-dollar box office hit film Dawn of the Seven, as he encourages Justin to outstage this person distracting him, which again, we know is to be the Deep. Now, on the Manhandle podcast with special guest Old Father, Black Noir 2 warns Old Father to not listen or take advice from the Deep because he's a liar and he thinks he's the man, but he really isn't. Noir suggests to let Homelander heal him on stage on Easter as a miracle, as Old Father would have to run it by Homelander first, but he loves the idea, and the Deep is jealous and embarrassed of what Noir just said about him. Next day, we see the Deep follows Justin to his rehearsals. Now inside, Justin is happy to share how things went with the Deep as Adam gives Justin the great news that their play is going to be accepted on Broadway and that he can now quit his day job, and we can see Justin couldn't be happier about the news. But unfortunately, as Adam heads to the bathroom and while on the toilet, a gill jumps into his ass and Justin hears the screams and tries to save him by taking it out of his butt, but it is too late because he dies. Meaning that the Deep not only killed Adam, but also killed Justin's dream in the process. And let's just take a moment right now to say RIP to Adam, one of the greatest directors of his time. Now Noir confronts the Deep, who shows zero remorse. Instead, the Deep leverages his power by telling Noir that from now on, he'll do as the Deep says, or he'll tell Homelander all about Noir's secret theatrical aspirations. So this particular POV or segment was funny, but didn't necessarily add too much to the overall story, but it has more of a focus on the beef between these two characters and how their relationship has changed for the worse, and it looks to be broken beyond any repair. Now, it seems obvious that it's just a matter of time before both of these characters try to kill one another, and if I were to bet, I bet the Deep ends up killing Noir first, because I feel like the show is going to save the Deep's death for Annie. Now, for the most random and hilarious and utterly bizarre segment of this episode, we cut to the POV of Tara, which we know is Butcher's beloved bulldog. Tara is having a dream about Homelander and him encouraging Tara to have sex with him. It's revealed this dream comes from Tara's habit of regularly humping his Homelander doll. Now, Annie offers to watch this much-abused doll as Tara follows after her to retrieve his prized possession. On his way, he stops and listens in on a conversation between Butcher and MM, who are still trying to track down Bombsight. Now, MM accidentally drops his chocolate bar and Tara almost eats it before Butcher stops him. Now, he shares with Butcher that he's never slept better since accepting not being afraid of death anymore, much like Butcher. He's willing to die at any cost, seeing that Soldier Boy's newfound immortality as a cosmic joke. MM truly believes that his ex-wife and his daughter are better off without him, and that if he allowed himself to hope that he can see them again, he'll be too afraid to do what's necessary to kill Homelander. Now, Tara pays a visit to Frenchie as Frenchie confides in Tara about his inability to give Kimiko the peaceful, normal life that she deserves. He then tosses out a burnt chocolate cake that he made made for her into the trash, which Tara again attempts to eat but fails at doing so, at least for now. So first now Frenchie. To me, the show seems to be laying out the groundwork for one, if not both of them, sacrificing themselves at some point this season. Their willingness to embrace a potentially fatal path for the greater good or for those they love is becoming a clear theme so far. Now back in the kitchen, Butcher and Hughie are arguing over the V1. Now, Hughie wants to keep the idea going of using it for a vaccine for Annie and Kimiko to stay alive once they release the new refined version of the virus, while we see Butcher still hell-bent on focusing on killing Homelander and making sure he doesn't get the V1 and obviously destroying it before anyone else can ever use it again. Now, Hughie gets personal when he brings up Becca, saying, what if Becca needs the vaccine? Would he not want to protect her? As Butcher responds with this harsh reality as he says that he already did let her die. Now, their heated discussion is interrupted by Tara, who finally got into the chocolate cake in the trash. As we know, chocolate can be very deadly for dogs. Now, the boys have a brief panic, but luckily Hughie saves Tara just in time. Tara, shaken but alive, immediately has another Homelander sex dream after his near-death experience. Now, Butcher, we can clearly see, is relieved. In this rare moment of gratitude, he thanks Hughie for saving his dog. This close call with Tara seems to have softened Butcher's hardened exterior. As he's feeling uncharacteristically giving, he gives and tells Hughie that if they do get their hands on the V1, they will use some of it as a vaccine for Kimiko and Annie, but not for him because he is still set on dying once Homelander is gone. Now, my thoughts on the Tara segment, it felt the most random out of the 5 and on a surface level, very unnecessary to the main plot. However, I can see this being a massive setup for the boys in the coming episodes. One, again, the idea of not being afraid to die and Frenchie wanting to give Kimiko a better life, both are very clearly pointing towards potentially both of these characters dying. Now, my issue with is, I talked about a couple weeks ago, I'm a big fan of the character, and I've always felt like they've kind of wasted the character in the last few seasons. And I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like this is so against the character's motivations for him to now all of a sudden say that it's not, he doesn't care about his family, but now to say, well, they don't care about me and I just want to die. It's like, it just feels uncharacteristic for him to say that. So that doesn't feel earned to me. That feels kind of rushed and out of nowhere. And then if I'm really being honest with you all, if you all have been following my breakdowns to the very beginning of the show, I haven't cared about Frenchie since like season 2. So him potentially sacrificing himself and giving Kimiko this better life, I hope the best for Kimiko, but honestly, if Frenchie dies, I wouldn't be losing sleep personally because I think the character has been so unimportant for about 3 seasons now. Now, we also see Butcher finally showing some signs of humanity. His fear of Tara almost dying kind of brought that out of him. And his agreement to letting Hughie use a V1 as a vaccine, to me, this kind of points that there is still a heart inside of him, even though he wants to deny it. But getting back to the character that this segment focused on, I think this is definitely setting up Tara to be important to the story. Now, for those who don't know, in the comics, Tara had a much larger impact on the overall story, and even though it was never really confirmed, but it was very heavily implied that he had Compound V in his system, but clearly that's not the case in the show. Now, while Tara has largely been like a background character in the show, but in particular this season and getting his POV in this episode, to me, points towards he's probably going to play a big part in taking down Homelander. Or, as I speculated a few weeks ago, maybe his death will be the last thing that pushes Butcher over the edge, making him become this full-blown evil villain by the end of the day if he is to lose his dog. Now, of course, we'll have to see how this all plays out, but as far as the segment goes, it's my least favorite out of the 5 because it just seems so random, but it does have the potential to be something important for the later episodes. Now, it's time for Sage as she gets her own title card and she's in the elevator with Soldier Boy. We see her still kind of dropping hints at Soldier Boy about getting his hands on the V1 before Homelander does. Now, in her office, she has Ashley make the call to send the overseas troops back home to serve as Homelander's police if any Americans stand up against him, or if any of the Starlighters stand up against him, or if any Supes don't want to be on his side. Now, Sage and Ashley share a drink, and she really wants to speak to the other Ashley, and she finally confesses that she doesn't want Homelander to get his hands on the V1, and she did everything that she could to prevent him from finding it. Now, Sage needs Ashley's other side to read Soldier Boy's mind to see if he's warming up to joining Homelander, or if he's wanting to be against him. Now, Ashley refuses because it's too risky, as Sage doesn't give up though, as she offers Ashley to stay and continue to drink with her in hopes to convince her to change her mind. We watch as Ashley and Sage talk about their families, and Sage talks about her grandmother and how she considered her powers to be a gift versus everyone else considering it to be a burden. Now, this is a similar conversation that she had with Victoria in season 4 that shows that Sage never gave up her hatred towards the world for them giving up on her grandmother even though she had discovered a cure for her cancer. The sharing of the feelings doesn't quite work on Ashley, so Sage decides it's time to tell Ashley her actual plans. Now, stage 1 is already complete, and that is Homelander taking over the country. Now, phase 2 includes the end of the world. She wants the soup-killing virus to be released in order for the soups to learn that the humans were behind it, causing actual hell on Earth as Sage watches from her bunker and gets her revenge on the world for what happened to her grandmother. She wants the world to end and wants peace and quiet forever and needs Homelander dead first, and she invites Ashley to join her. So this POV was very interesting because we finally get to hear Sage's true intentions by using Homelander as a tool for her plans of ending the world. The world's smartest person doesn't want fame or fortune. She simply wants to watch the world burn for not allowing her to use her powers to save the one person who truly cared, loved, and understood her. Now the question is, will Ashley actually help Sage in taking down Homelander? I mean, after finding out that she wants to end the world, will Ashley ultimately betray Sage and tell Homelander everything she just learned? I mean, we know she's terrified of Homelander, but it's also an apocalypse that Sage wants to start. So again, will she choose the devil she knows, or will she risk everything to prevent Sage's ultimate revenge? Now, last but not least, saving the best for last, it's time for Soldier Boy to get his moment as we cut back to the 7 meeting. Homelander admits to his dad that he hasn't been able to get through Stan, but despite their complicated relationship, Soldier Boy convinces Homelander to give him an hour with Edgar to get the location of the last of the V1. Now, inside the cell, man, I love me some Giancarlo Esposito. He just breathes aura. He's such a dope character, such a great actor. But within seconds of them walking in, Stan is already insulting both of them, completely unfazed by 2 of the most dangerous men on the planet. But Soldier Boy has actually done his homework. He takes back control of the room by revealing he knows exactly where Samir and Zoe are. That's the only thing that breaks Stan's poker face as he gives them a lead, and that is a Vought historian that lives in Los Angeles, and he might know where the V1 can be found. What's going on, y'all? Hope you all are enjoying the breakdown. If you are, hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. But I want to pop in here because as I was editing this video, I realized that I made a mistake. So as you all are going to see in the next minute, 2 minutes or so, as I'm referring to the character Mr. Marathon, I mistakenly call him Mr. Manhattan. Now, I'm a DC fan, so maybe I was thinking about Mr. Manhattan every time I was talking about the character. But nonetheless, I just want to let y'all know it is a mistake on my part. I'm very aware that Jarrett's playing a character by the name of Mr. Marathon. But again, for whatever reason, I had a brain fart. I was calling him Mr. Manhattan. I'm sure someone in the comments is still going to correct me on it and say, you idiot, why did you call him that? And maybe it's deservingly so. But again, I know I made a mistake. I'm aware that the character is named Mr. Marathon, but I called him Mr. Manhattan. So I just wanted to put that in there. Hope you all enjoy the rest of the video. Please don't hate on me. Please don't spam it in the comments. But nonetheless, just want to come in here and let y'all know I am aware of the mistake. And just imagine me saying Mr. Marathon instead of from Mr. Manhattan. Enjoy the rest of the breakdown. Now cut to Los Angeles where we meet Mr. Manhattan, who was once a part of the 7 before being replaced by A-Train after losing to him in a race. But more importantly for my Supernatural fans out there, we get the reunion of the Winchester brothers. Now I myself used to watch Supernatural, but I kind of gave up like halfway through. It was not because the show got bad. It was just too many episodes to catch up on at a certain point. I'm going to eventually watch it. But again, this is a really cool reunion. And this is one of 2 special reunions of this episode. Now, since being replaced, has made a career out of being in non-VCU, lower-tiered superhero films at Sony Pictures Television. And he also is a drug dealer on the side. Now, down in the basement, we get a circle of celebrities, including Seth Rogen, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, which shout out to Superbad. We got McLovin in the house. That is my favorite comedy of all time, so that is a cool reunion there. We also have Camille Nanjiani and Will Forte all hanging out. But we also see Misha Collins, who's playing the suit by the name of Maul Chemical, completing the supernatural reunion. They're all sitting around discussing how they can express their non-support for the soups rounding up Starlighters, as this was just a perfect satire of Hollywood activism. But things get even weirder when Homelander and Soldier Boy enter into Vought history room, and he has shelves of boxes of baby oil stacked up, and this, my friends, is obviously a reference to Puff Daddy. Now, this is a quick moment, but we see Soldier Boy sees a picture of Stormfront and he admires it, and yet again, this is clearly hinting at a romantic history between them for the third week in a row, setting up Vought Rising prequel series. Now, Homelander is getting impatient as Mr. Manhattan tells them that Bomb Sight has the V1 and he invited him over and he'll be arriving soon. Now, eventually, Homelander gets tired of waiting around with people who make fun of him behind his back and being around celebrities that support Starlight, as he lets them know that it'll be soon enough that they're going to regret the memes that they shared about him online. As Homelander leaves, Maul, Chemical, and Manhattan give a look at each other about like the secret plan as Chemical breathes gas on Homelander's face, knocking him out. Now they try to convince Soldier Boy to help in killing Homelander by removing his powers. But in a very shocking moment, we see Soldier Boy tells them that nobody can screw with his son but him, as he kills Maul Chemical by snapping his neck, and Mr. Manhattan chases after him and runs through Will Forte, Craig Robinson, and the rest of the celebrities. Now the best death in them all was easily Seth Rogen. Seeing Seth Rogen getting split in half on a show that he produces was just peak meta comedy. But it gets even better when we see Soldier Boy using that P. Diddy baby oil as Manhattan slips on it and Soldier Boy breaks both of his legs. Manhattan doesn't know where Bomb Sight is, but confirms that he does have the last of the V1 as Homelander comes in and crushes his head. Homelander wonders why Soldier Boy didn't kill him, as he responds by saying screw them, but secretly I think he's saying he actually cares about his son. He also admits sleeping with Firecracker, which is very important for the end, but their time with sleeping together has come to an end because the pillow talk was horrible. As father and son are apparently now officially on the same page. This was easily the best in my favorite segment and POV of this episode. The Edgar stand scene was great. The cameos worked. The comedy really worked for me in this scene. We got the supernatural reunion. We got the Superbad reunion. And the gore in this segment was a lot of fun. Now, as far as the story goes, Soldier Boy saved his son because his son didn't kill him in last week's episode when he had the chance to do so, and that clearly meant something to him. But also, Soldier Boy can see that despite their differences, they have a lot in common in the sense that they have people surrounding them that want them dead. Soldier Boy clearly had issues with his father and his brother that was mentioned last week, so he sees Homelander as an opportunity to connect with someone in his family. By the way, the Stormfront and Vought Rising moments throughout this season continues to be pointing towards a big reveal. Right now, it seems like they are leaning towards the possibility that Stormfront may be still alive, but also that he might be Homelander's mother. Now, we end this episode with Firecracker entering her room to find Homelander waiting for her. He confronts her about sleeping with his father, which he personally didn't care about, but it was the pillow talk she had with him that pisses him off because she shared her doubts in Homelander being her god. Homelander spares her life at first by telling her to pack up her things and leave, but we see Firecracker begging and pleading with Homelander about how she gave up everything for him and believed in him with all of her soul. She confesses her love to him and how she felt blessed when she was breastfeeding him. Now, she almost won him back and won his trust back, but again, it goes back to her miswording. Like she had did at the start of this episode by mistakenly calling him a prophet, she yet again messes up by saying that everyone needs love, even God, as he pushes her head against her very own American Eagle statue, killing Firecracker. A very poetic death for the American-loving Firecracker and how she died by a American Eagle at the hands of the man she forced herself to believe was her one true God, but look where that got her. So I guess it's safe to assume that Old Father, by default, will be leading Homelander's God campaign moving forward as we say goodbye to Firecracker. Now, I will say, for a character that we didn't really see use her superpowers, but used her power or influence throughout this show, I thought that this was maybe the best performance we've seen from Firecracker her entire run through season 4 and season 5. Like, I thought her performance was excellent. Now, what are my thoughts about this episode? So I'm going to be honest, I'll have to admit, I've seen the episode a few times at this point, and at first, I was not a fan of this episode. My first time watching, I said to myself, why on earth are we spending so much time with Firecracker? Why are we watching Terror humping a Homelander doll? And why in the hell do I need to care about this beef between the Deep and Noir? But after a rewatch, I came to terms with thinking this was a pretty solid episode. Like, it was much better than last week's episode. I think we could all agree on that. But I still have my issues with this episode. Now, speaking to the positives first, again, I thought Firecracker had a really great performance in this episode, and narratively speaking, about her putting faith in someone like Homelander can only eventually lead to death, which we saw, and I thought that that really worked. The last segment with Soldier Boy and Homelander and the baby oil and the supernatural stuff and the super bad stuff, like, that was just really, really good for me. But as far as my negatives go, again, I thought the terror stuff had its funny moments and it was really ridiculous. But I just feel like the show itself does not know what to do with some of the characters and the boys. Again, MM, once driven by protecting his family, but now he's basically waving the white flag, feels very underwhelming and uncharacteristic. As I mentioned, I haven't cared about Frenchie since season 2, so him sacrificing himself potentially for Kimiko, honestly, I will not be shedding a single tear if that were to happen. And then when it comes to the Sage stuff, it was interesting, but her plans to watch the world burn just kind of feels underwhelming too, because we've barely spent that amount of time with her in my mind to justify those motivations. And lastly, the Vought Rising stuff with Bombsight and Stormfront just feels so forced into the story. All this being set up for Vought Rising, which on a side note, I can talk about this on a much larger video, but we found out that Gen V was canceled last week, and honestly, I can see Vought Rising having a similar fate. Anyway, last thing I'll say is this episode could have been a lot better if this wasn't in the final season. Honestly, I feel like this show right now in the last few episodes seem more concerned about let's set up Vought Rising more so than having like a satisfying conclusion for its flagship show. But I hope that with the last 3 episodes, I hope to be proven wrong, because I do hope that they stick the landing on this finale. With all that being said, that will conclude my breakdown of The Boys Season 5, Episode 5. Thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. If you all are watching on YouTube, I appreciate you all for the continued support. Do me a favor, man. If you all enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button. When you hit the like button, the hype button's going to pop up, so you can hit that hype button to spread this out to new viewers. Which, speaking of new viewers, man, consider hitting that share button. Share this video to anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about The Boys. And again, leave your thoughts, your theories. What segment was your favorite? What worked? What didn't work? And last but not least, consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. Shout out to my podcast listeners out there. If you listen to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you all get your podcasts from, I appreciate you all support. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below this episode. What do you all hope to see in the final 3 episodes? And consider following the podcast. And if you can leave me a 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate it. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you for watching again or listening to this week's breakdown. We will be back to talk about the next episode next week. But in the meantime, like I said, subscribe to the channel for more TV reviews, movie reviews, and so much more. But with that being said, don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all again on the next breakdown.